Now I'm at the point where I want to start defining the font size for everything. Um, and essentially what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a system into which all of these things are going to be sized. Now I could go with pixels, but the problem with pixels, well, using pixel-based measurements has its pros and its cons. The main pro of using pixels is that I know exactly what the proportions are going to look like and everything, and I have more control. The con is that then the user has less control, and also, you know, there's different resolutions, and one pixel in certain resolutions is going to look larger or smaller depending on how the screen resolution of the user is set up. So I generally don't want to go with a pixel-based layout. What I would do is use a system where I define a I define in the body a font size in percentage, and then from there I define all the other elements based on in ems, em. So therefore, oh, the one thing to understand is, so I'm going to is what's 100%. So if I define that percentage, I'm going into the body portion of my CSS. I'm going to say font size, and I'm going to say 100%. Now, when I refresh this, we won't see a change. And you're saying, well, 100% of what? It's 100% of the browser's default size. And Firefox, by default, comes shipped with 16 pixels as its default. Now, this is the same for both Internet Explorer 6 and 7, Safari, and the majority of other browsers out there are going to come shipped with 16 pixels being their default size. Um, Now, most users won't be changing it, and the few that do, well, we can't account for everybody, but I think that'll be sufficient just to leave it at their 100, and then we'll define um, all these other elements however way we want to. So now, if I were to use, instead of using, if I wanted to say maybe shrink it down to about 12 pixels, I would change the font size to, I think it's about 76%. And then when I refresh it, now that's about 12 pixels. So for the record, the way I know it's about 12 pixels is because if I say, let's see, so if I know that the default font size for everything is about 16, and I multiply 16 by the percentage that I'm going to do. So if it's going to be 76%, it's going to be 0.76. So I multiply it by 0.76, then I'm going to get a font size of about 12 pixels. Um, it's pretty simple math. It's almost like when you go on sale and if something's 50% off, you say if the item is 70 bucks and you multiply it by, if it's 50% off, you say 0.50. You don't necessarily need the zero. You see $35. So if you want to use this method, that's the calculation you use. You use we start with the default pixel size, which is 16, times point whatever percentage you're going to provide it with. And actually, for me, I prefer to keep it at about 100%. And sometimes I like it even bigger, but we'll see. I may change this later as the design comes. And I'll create a new, through my CSS panel, I'll create a new rule, and I'm going to redefine a tag, and the tag is going to be P for paragraph. Yeah, I'll leave P for paragraph in there, and I'll say that its font size is going to be 1 EM, which is going to be the same, and I'll save it. And then when I refresh this, we don't see much has changed, right? Still sitting there. And I'll create another one. How about we create one for my header? We'll say H1, and we could make this thing, let's see what, 4 EM, which is a little large, but let's see how that affects our document. And once I refresh this, whoa, those things are pretty big. Well, we could start working with this more. But we see what has changed. And just a final note, I'm always trying to keep things neat. So when I look in my CSS panel over here and I see how my rules are listed over there, I like to keep my, so since all this stuff is about my or ID selectors, I like to put my type selectors, just move them up the list like so, so that way when I'm looking at the document, all that stuff is in front over there. And I'm always staying vigilant to keep things neat, because the more styling and stuff you do, the more code you generate, and the easier it is to confuse yourself with where things are and everything.